Welcome to Shaq's house. Shaq's house. That's our Shaq. You're now in Shaq's house. Welcome to Shaq's house.
What's up, Shaq Housers? How you doing? Look at this. Pam Grier is Wonder Woman. I should have wore this yesterday for Juneteenth, but I got busy. Anywho, what's up, folks? I hope you're doing well. Hope your week went well. I got something for you today. I've been thinking about this one for a while now, folks. It's Gwenpool. You know, the pink costume chick that's like, we're in a comic book, but nobody believes her. I'm gonna explain how she interacts with the comic book reality of the Marvel comics and of the Marvel universe and the Ultimate Universe. That's what I'm gonna explain today. And try to relate it to films like Interstellar and The Last Action Hero, both of which involve higher dimensional physics, breaking the fourth wall, and other dimensions. You know what I'm talking about? Check it out. Alright, let's talk all about Gwenpool. Gwenpool is a dimensional traveler from a world, specifically Earth TRN 565, TRN meaning temporary reality number, where the Marvel and Ultimate universes, Earth 616 and Earth 1610, respectively, were chronicled in mass media comic books known as Marvel Comics. Upon entering Earth 616, she therefore had an encyclopedic knowledge of facts and events that were not public knowledge, as well as a general understanding of the meta-narrative structure that defined the laws of that dimension, aka comic book logic. As a normal human, Gwen would have been a background character and therefore vulnerable to being a casualty statistic in a superhuman battle. Therefore, she adopted a costume persona to adopt the special benefits of being the quote-unquote hero of a story, such as decelerated aging and unrealistic applications of the laws of physics to a degree. She uses her knowledge of tropes and story narratives to predict outcomes and events. For instance, she once helped Miles Morales identify a kid in his school who was responsible for bombing it. Gwen's reasoning? Because the kid was introduced pre-Secret Wars in a subplot that had no resolution, and the Molecule Man only transferred over the relevant aspects of Miles' life over to Earth 616, the fact that the kid still existed in Miles' life post-Secret Wars meant that his plot was still continuing. Over time, Gwen developed the ability to actively interface with the comic book reality structure. She could see word balloons, thought bubbles, sound effects, or flashback sequences when someone was explaining something. Gwen could interact with these literary devices physically, like getting forced out of a window by an oversized stream of consciousness thought bubble, or gather up the sound effects of Batro beating down a door so that no one else could hear the sounds. Also, Gwen tends to frequently break the fourth wall. But what is that though? We've seen it in TV shows like Saved by the Bell and plenty of movies, but what is that? Well, currently, there is no comic book definition for the fourth wall. It's just a literary technique for meta-commentary. Some Marvel genius scientists like Reed Richards and Dr. Doom, they've evaluated characters like She-Hulk and Gwenpool, and they don't find their whole "we're in a comic book perspective" to be scientifically credible. But if I can do a perspective, if I can give a definition, I will. The fourth wall is a barrier, similar in principle to a one-way mirror, that separates a dimensional realm from any higher dimensional external observers. These observers, the audience, can see and comprehend the people and events within the dimension, the story, but per cosmic accordance, the story typically does not comprehend the existence of the audience. If the contents of the story break the barrier, they're communicating with the audience and thereby breaking that accord, hence, breaking the fourth wall. By perceiving the fourth wall, Gwen could move into the equivalent of extra-dimensional space called gutter space. From the perspective of someone still in the comic book, it would appear as if Gwen was fully or partially disappearing before their eyes. By traveling into the gutter space, Gwen existed outside of the flow of space and time in the comics themselves, and from this vantage point, she could observe events happening in the comic panels at her leisure, then return to the narrative flow an instant later. She could travel to anywhere in space and time, provided that it was depicted somewhere inside the comic book panels. If she imagined being in a different location, she could physically travel to that point because the thought bubble of her imagining herself there was in the pages. Although incredibly powerful from the perspective of the Marvel Universe, Gwen's abilities are limited by comic book tropes and editorial oversight as well. A future version of Gwenpool learned the limits of her powers. For example, she could not bring back a friend of hers from the dead because editorial decree made it so that her character had to remain dead. So if she killed an important character like Miles Morales, her actions would be explained out of existence by new pages stating that it was all a dream, all in her imagination, etc. A new ability that she discovered was the power to create new information that imposes a different interpretation on previously described events, also known as retroactive continuity, or retcons for short. She can do this virtually at will. By vividly imagining something or telling a story about something that happened in the past, Gwen would create flashback panels appearing in her comics. These flashbacks, though dreamed up by Gwen, would create retcons that actually affected reality off-panel up until that point. While trying to understand Gwen's claims that they were all comic book characters, the Kamala Khan version of Ms. Marvel offered up an alternative explanation. She posited that Gwen was a mutant with the power to alter reality, and when it manifested, she couldn't fully grasp its potential or contain it. So to compensate, her mind created a false set of memories and guidelines through which she could use her power to interact with reality. Gwen couldn't stop her vivid imagination from flashback paneling Ms. Marvel's story idea and inadvertently may have retconned herself into being a mutant. So as a result, Gwen now remembers being a mutant and being a non-mutant all at once. And here are some of my thoughts on Gwenpool as well. Gwenpool is kind of like the Frank Grimes character from The Simpsons, the concept being somebody from the real world being put into a fictional medium, but in Frank Grimes' case, he was not having any fun and was driven crazy. Gwenpool's having the time of her life. But if Gwenpool is just a dimension hopper, then she's just a higher dimensional being. Take the 2014 film Interstellar, where it was stated that beings who exist in a fifth dimensional space, they could perceive time as something physical. To them, the past might be a canyon that they could climb into, and the future, a mountain that they can climb up. Applying that logic, Gwenpool can see the entirety of the Marvel and Ultimate universes as a comic strip laid out in front of her. I mean, granted, it was technically just before she got sucked into the Earth 616 with her issues of comics, but now that she's in the 616 reality, it's that level of extra-dimensional study of the Marvel and Ultimate universes as comic books is what gave her an awareness of the fourth wall, secret identities, past knowledge, and the meta-structural mechanics of how stories play out in her new reality, etc. Also, take the 1993 film The Last Action Hero. It was a bomb, critically and commercially, and misunderstood, but it was ahead of its time. And many of Marvel's live-action films, particularly Spider-Man No Way Home, owe much to it. The premise of Last Action Hero was that every single movie is its own parallel universe, and those universes continue whether or not we're watching them in our own world. Like the Marvel comic universes, the rules of those realities are governed by scripts and editorial oversight from the quote-unquote real world, if that makes sense. And like the kid in The Last Action Hero, Danny Madigan, played by Austin O'Brien, Gwenpool, realizing that the rules of the real world don't coincide with that of the one they've been transported into. So Gwenpool took advantage of that fact and fashioned herself into a hero. In The Last Action Hero, Danny Madigan thought that he could play chicken on a bicycle against a moving vehicle until he realized that in this movie reality, he occupies the role of comedy sidekick and therefore would be killed by the oncoming car. Now, if Gwenpool is simply just a native Earth 1/6 being born with the power to alter reality, then her power is just perspective-based, and that allows her to interact with her environment like it's a comic book. But it also says much about her mental state and just how potentially dangerous she really is. Okay, Shackhousers, that's what I got today about Gwenpool and my thoughts on her. Sorry I took so long with this, but tune in next week. I got something for you then that I know you're going to like. Have a good week, Shackhousers. Later!
Mansion, apartment.
Shack house. Yes!
Yeah.